Now we get to Time Thieves by D.N.R. Koontz. It says telepath versus alien. I don't know why all these books remind me of Star Trek: The Next Generation, but this illustration makes me think of Deanna Troy or Counselor Troy from Star Trek. Anyway, this is another ace double. I think it's the last time Koontz had to share a billing with anyone. It's paired with Against Arcturus by Susan K. Putney. It's not a particularly long book. Um, One second. And my notes on this. This was from 1972 as well. He must have written 10 books that year. I have to look it up. It's crazy. While reading this, I thought we can rebuild him. We have the technology. I don't. I kept thinking because that's what happens to the guy in this book. This was written when Dean was 25, and I noticed it had all the plot points of his later work against strangers. He seems to gravitate toward that aliens bringing, something messianic message of hope, to mankind thing going on. There's a guy with amnesia who acquires sudden and rapidly growing psychic powers. He's paranoid about being followed, and that while his antagonists rightly fear that this power or the knowledge of it will spread out of their control. So, this has also, I noticed the seed of some of the basic ideas behind The Bad Place, the awesome book. The first novel I think I ever read when I was like 8 years old or something. Really messed me up. What happens, with the family in that book. I didn't even know what incest was, and I'm like, I had to figure all these things out as a kid accidentally. I read too much fiction back as a kid. Didn't know what I was reading. Anyway, the point is, it reminded me there's certain plot points I won't give away that reminded me of The Bad Place, which is from 1990. Another one, I thought the title, Time Thieves, it doesn't really have anything to do with it seems irrelevant title, but it involves a side plot about aliens for no reason. Now, sometimes I think Dean is beginning to make fun of his sci-fi past, starting to parody himself at the beginning a little bit. I liked how Koontz's plot forces the hero again to commit murder, testing his moral resolve in a way similar to his book Chase, which I think he wrote in 1974. Or maybe it was around the same time. Chase is one of the best books ever. I'll get to maybe that some other time, but y'all can find it. It's very rare, but it was reprinted in Strange Highways, his book of novellas from 1995. I felt like this is one of those ones where there's an obvious Freudian explanation of what's going on there, in the background. Again, I don't want to spoil it. I would recommend buying this book. It wasn't too hard to find. It was only like $20. I found it, I think, on Amazon. And then also on page 174 of Catherine Ramblin's biographies, she says, another of Dean's biblical allegories, Time Thieves, was part of an ace double. In it, Pete Mullion, the hero, shares many of Dean's qualities. He had been lonely as a boy and believes that loneliness is the worst human experience. Pete is aware, something repeatedly expressed by characters in future novels, that the insane never suspect they are mad. It is only the sane man who questions his sanity. Pete is apolitical, but dismissive of politicians. His strongest trait is the ability to assimilate anything, no matter how radical, and work within a new picture being presented to him. In a story that foreshadows strangers and his use of false memories and a gifted alien race, Pete discovers that he has been missing for 12 days, remembers nothing. He spots men watching him and experiences telepathic powers. The men take him on board a spaceship and explain that he had once witnessed their presence on Earth, and they had erased his memories. But as they worked on him, they had unleashed telepathic powers, which they must now eradicate to prevent him from introducing these powers onto others. The human species, the aliens argue, have not yet evolved to the point of being able to be or to meet a more advanced species. And so they simply expect Pete to accept their wisdom in this matter. However, Pete has experienced the way powers enhance intimacy and companionship, so he resists ever giving them up. With them, he will never again feel lonely. He uses the full strength of his childhood fears to allow himself to blast the aliens away. And Catherine Ramsden goes on, this is the tale of the Garden of Eden, but with a radically different ending. The aliens represent God, who offers paradise, and then, when humankind seems immature and untrustworthy, he attempts to retrieve it. Adam and Eve did indeed lose their access to paradise, but Dean's protagonist is not so easily cowed. Pete grabs back from God what God promised. Disinclined to accept the paternalistic concept that God knows best, Dean thought that we should be given the gifts and allowed to see what we can do. End quote of Catherine Ramsden. And then in my final notes here, I think in a way, the friend and the enemy from Koontz's book, Cold Fire. I'm not sure where my copy of Cold Fire is. One of my second or third maybe favorites of his, or at least as a kid. I read this when it came out. I think it was the first hardback I ever had enough allowance money to buy. On here he is with a tree for some reason. I always like this picture. I always thought the friend and enemy thing from Cold Fire might be coming, you know what I mean, out of this book as well. The Dean Koontz Companion by Koontz's friend Ed Gorman implies that he intended to revise and republish, but it's been 25 years since this book was written, so that seems unlikely. But that's it on that one.